The rice was burning. Adis knew it the way you know things in a marriage, not from looking, not from thinking, but from somewhere in the chest, a quiet alarm that goes off before the smoke does. She crossed the kitchen in 3 steps, lifted the pot lid, and the steam hit her face like a rebuke. She'd been distracted again. She set the lid down and stood there, staring at the blackened crust at the bottom of the pot. 11 years of marriage and she still couldn't keep her mind on one thing long enough to. Her phone buzzed. Emeka, landing in 20. Don't wait up. She read it twice. Not because she didn't understand the words, but because he'd said the same thing last Thursday. And the Thursday before that. And each time she'd left his food wrapped on the counter, gone to bed at 10, and woken up to the sound of him showering at midnight, smelling of something she could never quite name. Not perfume. Not another woman's soap. Something more domestic than that. Something that smelled, if she was honest with herself, like home. She wasn't honest with herself. Not yet. The house in Lekki Phase 1 was everything Adis had prayed for at 24, the kind of prayer you say on your knees with your eyes squeezed shut, the kind where you describe the tiles and the staircase and the compound with security. She had it all now. Marble floors. A generator that came on before NEPA even finished going. A husband who wore her money to church and drove a V8 and remembered, every anniversary, to buy her the same brand of perfume she'd worn on their first date. Emeka Okafor was a good man. Everybody said so. His mother said so at every family gathering, loud enough for Adis to hear, "That's my son, he takes care of his own." Not like these young men of nowadays. His colleagues said so. His pastor said so. Even Adis' own mother, who had initially worried that Emeka was too smooth, the kind of smooth that only comes from practice, even she had softened over the years, accepted the Christmas envelopes, stopped asking questions. Adis had 2 children with this good man. Kizaram, 8, who had Emeka's eyes and her grandmother's stubbornness. And little Tebena, 5, who was afraid of the dark and slept with the Bible under his pillow because his Sunday school teacher told him demons couldn't cross the word of God. She loved her life. She just wished, sometimes, that she could find his second phone. She'd seen it once. 8 months ago. A flash of black screen on his side of the bed, there and gone before she could register the brand. When she asked him about it, he laughed, that easy, rehearsed laugh, and said it was a work phone, IT compliance, don't worry about it. She'd let it go. People let things go when they're not ready for what they'll find. But then came the receipt. She found it in his blazer pocket while sending clothes to the dry cleaner. Chicken Republic, Ikeja. Table for 4. March 14th. Emeka had been in Abuja on the 14th of March. She knew because she'd spoken to him on video call while he ate jollof rice from what he said was a hotel tray. The receipt was for a family meal. 2 adult combos. 1 children's pack. 1 kid's juice. Adis stood in the laundry room for a very long time. Then she folded the receipt, put it in her own pocket, and went back to the kitchen to start a new pot of rice. She didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, she became a different woman. Quietly. The way water becomes ice, same substance, different state. She stopped asking where he was going. She started paying attention to where he'd been. She noticed the things she trained herself not to notice, how he always took a shower before she could smell him. How his call log was always, conveniently, only the last 3 hours. How he sometimes said "we" and caught himself and said "I" instead. It took her 6 weeks to find the second phone. It was in the car. Not in the glove compartment where she'd looked twice already. In the gap between the driver's seat and the center console, wrapped in a black microfiber cloth, tucked like a secret that knew it was a secret. She sat in the car. In the compound. Driver's side. His side. 9:30 in the morning, Children already in school, house help inside watching Telemundo. She unwrapped it. Samsung. Fingerprint lock. But Emeka was a lazy man about passwords. Always had been. She tried his mother's birth year. Nothing. She tried Kizaram's birthday. Nothing. She tried her own wedding anniversary and felt the insult of it when that didn't work either. She tried the day they met. The phone opened. There is a specific kind of silence that falls over a woman when she sees the thing she already knew but hadn't said out loud yet. Adis went through the phone in that silence. Methodically. Like a surgeon who has already decided the outcome of the operation and is simply confirming. The contact name was Biodon Logistics. But Biodon was not logistics. Biodon was a woman. 30-something, from the photos. Light-skinned in the strategic way that cost money in Lagos. She sent voice notes at 11 p.m. She sent photographs of a child's drawing with the caption, "Daddy, Kemi drew this for you. She says you haven't been home in 3 days. Daddy. 3 days. Adis scrolled back. Months back. A year back. The earliest message she could find was dated 4 years ago. But the tone, easy, domestic, deeply unsurprised by itself, suggested something that had started long before that. Don't forget Kemi's school fees. Last term they almost sent her home. The generator is bad again. You said you'd send someone. She asked why she can't come to your real house. I didn't know what to tell her. I know this is hard. I'm not asking you to choose. I'm just asking you to be present. Adis read that last message 3 times. I'm not asking you to choose. This woman, this Biodon, wasn't a side piece. She wasn't a mistake. She wasn't even a secret, not really. She was a second life. Organized. Functional. With a child and a generator problem and school fees and a daughter who drew pictures for her daddy. Adis' hands were not shaking. That surprised her. She'd always imagined that when this moment came, and some part of her had always known it would come, she would shake. Cry. Break something. Instead she felt very, very clear. She took photographs of the phone screen. Every message. Every photo. The address that appeared when Biodon once sent her location, Magodo Phase 2, off CMD Road. Then she wrapped the phone back in its cloth. Put it back in the gap between the seat and the console. Got out of the car. Went inside. Made herself a cup of Milo. And began to plan. She hired a car she'd never been in before, not an Uber linked to her number, not a friend's driver who might talk. She went to the motor park near Jakande and negotiated with a young man with a Camry who asked no questions if the price was right. The price was right. She went to Magodo on a Tuesday afternoon. The house was not what she expected. She didn't know what she'd expected, something shameful, something that announced its own wrongness. But the house was a clean 3-bedroom semi-detached on a quiet street. Flower pots by the door. A small bicycle on the porch. The kind of house that, if you didn't know, you would call decent. She sat in the Camry across the street for 40 minutes. Then the door opened. A little girl came out first. Maybe 7, maybe 8. The same age as Kizaram. She had Emeka's walk, that slight lean to the left, one shoulder lower than the other, the walk Adis had always teased him about. The walk she had watched her own daughter inherit and found adorable. On this child it broke something open in her chest. The woman came out after. Biodon. She was not what the voice notes had suggested, not soft, not pleading. She looked tired. She was wearing a house dress and carrying a marketing bag, and she held her daughter's hand and they walked to the junction together, and the little girl was talking, head tilted up at her mother, animated about something, and the woman looked down at her and laughed. A real laugh. The kind that doesn't know it's being watched. Adis pressed her hand to her mouth. Not from hatred. She'd expected to feel hatred. From recognition. Because that walk to the junction, mother and daughter, hand in hand, Lagos on flattening everything to gold and shadow. She had taken that same walk 100 times with Kizaram. And in that moment she understood the most devastating thing about her husband's betrayal. He hadn't just stolen from her. He had copied her. Built the same life twice. Used the same blueprint. The same easy laugh, the same generator excuses, the same man who came home smelling of someone else's routine. She told the driver to go. She cooked his favorite that evening. Ofonogbu, the bitter leaf soup his mother had taught her, the one that took 4 hours and stained the wooden spoon black. She pounded yam by hand even though the machine was right there on the counter. She set the table. She lit the small candle she kept for anniversaries. Emeka walked in at it and looked at the table and smiled. Ada, what's the occasion? She looked at him. Really looked. Counted the lies in his face, not with anger anymore, but with a kind of forensic grief, the way you inventory a house after a flood. Sit down, she said. Eat first. He sat. He ate. He talked about traffic on Third Mainland, about some client in Abuja who was being difficult, about a Benin school report he'd meant to look at. Normal. Seamless. The performance of 11 years. She waited until he pushed back from the table, satisfied. Then she placed her phone in front of him. Screen up. The photograph of Kemi's drawing. Daddy, Kemi drew this for you. The silence that fell was different from every silence they'd ever shared. Ada. Don't. Her voice was quiet. Not shaking. Don't say my name like that. Don't use my name like it's a door you can open right now. He looked down at the photo. Something moved across his face, not guilt, she noted. Not quite. More like the look of a man recalculating. Deciding which version of the truth to deploy. It's not what? G7. Adi said. She has your walk. Did you know that? That lean you have, the left shoulder, she does it exactly. And she doesn't even know why. She just walks like her father. He was quiet. How long? Ada. How long, Emeka? The air between them was thick with generator hum and the smell of bitter leaf and the weight of a marriage being held up to the light. 9 years, he said finally. 9 years. Kizaram was 8. She'd been pregnant with their first child when he started. She stood up. Her chair scraped back. She stood very still, hands at her sides, and in the silence she made a decision that she would spend years trying to explain to people who would not understand, because it was not the decision of a weak woman, and it was not the decision of a woman who had given up. It was the decision of a woman who had looked at the full picture, counted the cost, and chosen deliberately. Here is what's going to happen, she said. You're going to tell me everything. Not the version you've been rehearsing in your head for the last 3 minutes. Everything. And then we are going to talk about that child. Because that child did not choose this. And she is walking around Lagos with your face and your walk and no father, and I will not. Her voice broke, just once, like a crack in stone, and then sealed itself. I will not let a child suffer for what you did. Emeka stared at her. You're not leaving. His voice had something in it she'd never heard before. Something small. I haven't decided. She picked up her phone. But I tell you what I'm not doing. I'm not going to be destroyed by this. You don't get to destroy me. She moved toward the kitchen. Stopped in the doorway. Didn't turn around. You have until morning to decide whether you want to save this marriage or end it with your dignity intact. But understand me, Emeka, either way, I win. Because I know now. And the woman who knows is not the same woman you came home to. She went into the kitchen. She washed the pots. And the next morning, when the children came downstairs for school and Tebena asked why Daddy was sleeping on the couch, she told him Daddy had a bad back. Then she poured herself tea, picked up her phone, and called a lawyer she'd researched 2 weeks ago but hadn't yet dialed. The phone rang twice. She let it ring. For now, she wasn't ready to end it. But she was finally ready to know what it was worth.